Hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. We're going to be talking about developing some research and gathering some facts from the play, Romeo and Juliet. So let's get started. Here we go. So the first thing you might want to do is set up your notes with who's to blame, Act 1. I should collect this at the end of class. You'll have Tybalt will be the first example. And so if you remember back in the beginning of the play, we have this opportunity where we have a brawl, right? House of Montague bites his thumb. Benvolio shows up and says, "Part fools, you know not what you do." But then when he does that, Tybalt shows up. And so here's some great lines to blame Tybalt. He says, "What? Are you have your sword out among these dogs, right? Among these nobodies?" And then we talked about this at length. And then he says, "I do but keep the peace." And Tybalt says, "What? Here you are with your weapon out, and you talk of peace?" And then he says, and this is a good line, right? "I hate hell, all Montagues, and thee." And then here's the fighting or battle cry, if you will. One of the rare moments of stage direction, right? Very little in the play. It's one of the reasons Shakespeare's famous. So I don't care which lines you write down, but on your notes, it might look like this. "What?" And you quote it correctly, right? And so what you're seeing, if I go back a screen, is "What? Drawn, talk of peace, I hate the word." So I think I did this first one, actually. And then you would put a slash and keep typing. So what does that look like? You would write, put a slash, and then keep going. "Turn thee, Benvolio, and look upon thy death." And the other thing you should note is triple quote marks. We have dialogue. Let's stick to that habit. You will mention the play title. This is a slight academic nod to the debate whether Shakespeare wrote it or not. It's in Act 1, Scene 1. And then there's your line numbers, 61 through 62. Again, you can copy this one, or you can copy the bottom one. It makes no difference. It's, variety is the spice of life. Okay, how could we blame Lord Montague? Lord Montague, in case you want to write a note, could be considered the dad or father, the actual dad or father of Romeo, our lover, right? Our lovesick guy. "Many a morning hath he been seen there with tears augmenting the fresh morning's dew." I love that line. So he knows his son's sad, and he adds to clouds, more clouds, with his deep sigh. So maybe that morning fog, and maybe if it's cool enough in the air, you could see your breath, and you could see that beautiful line. And then, who's not guilty of this? "When should in the farthest east begin to draw," that's the sun rises in the east, sets in the west. "The shady curtains from Aurora's bed, away from light steals home my heavy son." So as soon as the day begins, right, it seems that his son comes home to roost. He shuts up his windows and locks fair daylight out. So there's some lines that he knows he's sad, but then you get into here, "I neither know it, what causes this sadness, nor can learn of him." So maybe there's no relationship to speak of, or it's a bad relationship. And one could argue, if so inclined, that maybe if the dad has a better relationship, maybe if Tybalt doesn't keep the fight going, maybe, Romeo and Juliet don't die. Something like that, okay? So what did I quote, in case you want to know? "I neither know it." You would definitely want to tell us what the "it" is here, what makes Romeo sad, "nor can learn of him." Again, citing, it got play title, Act 1, Scene 1, line 140, okay? But there's several lines here. He makes himself an artificial knight. Montague goes on and says, "I have tried, other friends have tried." And so in a weird way, you could also use this to blame Romeo, because Romeo is not sharing with his family that love him and are trying to help him. So there's that line. So Benvolio's coming up next. Benvolio, there's going to be a lot of fruit on the tree, so to speak, to blame Benvolio. There's actually two examples just in the very beginning of the play alone. So if we take a look at this, Benvolio gives the famous lines, and I mean, who can blame him, really? But if you're going to give advice, then direct someone, then you should be responsible for that direction you set. Something like that. And so Benvolio says, Romeo is saying, "She hath, and in that sparing she's sworn to live chaste," cuts beauty off from all posterity. She's not going to share her beauty with anyone. She hath forsworn love, and in that vow do I live dead. So Benvolio says, be ruled by me, forget to think of her. Oh, teach me how I should forget to think. And then Benvolio says the famous lines, by giving liberty unto thine eyes, examine other beauties. So here's that quote. Again, trying to take only what I need to survive, so that's the ellipses. There's the slash to note a different line is coming. Here's that line, all punctuations included, right? And then the reason I cited it this way is line 227, comma, I skipped 228 and did 229 through 230. So a little bit of a trick there. You keep paying attention, you'll find some other tricks. Remember, you can pause this video, rewind, or rewatch any portion of it. Ah, the mother. So remember Lord Montague's problems? Well, it looks like Lady Cap has similar problems. Here's just a quick review. Capulet and Paris are talking about arranged marriage and the courting of Juliet. This is where you learn she's a stranger in the world. She's not even 14 yet. She hath not seen the change of 14 years. So you would know her age. And then here's the problem with Lady Capulet. Lady Capulet's supposed to talk to her daughter about Paris, and yet her daughter, the mother is incapable of having that conversation with her own daughter. The idea of love, marriage, and the like. So you could note that there's a poor relationship there. And that will be echoed throughout the play. Just giving you guys heads up to help you. So what could you quote here? Maybe you do it like this. And if my screen's in the way, you got the play. You can see the page number 23, I believe it is. And you can find this line. This is the matter. Long dash. That's done with 2 short dashes. Nurse, comma, give leave a while. And then we skip lines. Also skip some words. And then she calls her back again. And so again, she's incapable of having a conversation with her own daughter. And we move back to Benvolio. I told you there'd be 2 reasons to blame Benvolio. Coming near to the end of this video for you guys. And here, Romeo and Benvolio are learning that there's a feast or a party taking place at the Capulet house. Again, that's where Paris is supposed to court Juliet, but he doesn't. And so they discover this party, and of course Benvolio says, you should go. And at this same feast, I'll show you Rosaline. That's where we learn the other girl's name. With all the other admired beauties of Verona. Okay, so all the girls are going to be there. All the people of age. So that's pretty cool. So I move the stake up. So, oh, I skipped a page. Here's where Romeo, I'll go back. Here's where Romeo fears that he's going too early. And he's going to blame fate or destiny. And yet he doesn't listen to his own premonitions or concerns, right? In fact, he ignores it and says, but he, fate or destiny, the capital H, that hath the steerage of my course, direct my sail. And then he tells his buddies, let's go. So for my mind misgives, some consequence yet hanging in the stars shall bitterly begin his fearful date. So you can blame Romeo, or better yet, the way this is quoted, you could blame fate. So you might want to cross out Romeo unless you take a different line that I was pointing out where he wants to go. If you look ahead of this, this is the Benvolio quote that I didn't share with you. I kind of skipped that slide. Compare her face. Again, Rosaline's, you guys see the square brackets? That's a really neat trick to add information. So woven into this conversation is adding text and obviously skipping text, along with how to do or how to show there's a new line in the poem, okay? The way the play is written. And so the other thing that's developing here is different acts and scenes. So we have Act 1, Scene 2. And the other quote for fate here is Act 1, Scene 5. And there's the line numbers, okay? So again, here's where we could blame fate. Romeo falls in love with Juliet right away. Also in this page, she doth teach the torches to burn bright. So here he totally ignores whatever that girl's name was, Rosaline. And he falls in love. and he has this beauty too rich for use, for earth too dear. And then he compares her to like a rich jewel in Ethiop's ear. So if you know anything about what they mine in Ethiopia, this would be a diamond. And then a diamond contrasted or hanging in a black person's ear is this idea that this beauty just stands out in the environment it's in. And so it's really a beautiful metaphor to describe her. And then he keeps going, a snowy dove trooping with crows. So similar comparison. Yonder lady over her fellow shows. So she's much prettier than over all the rest. And here's where he falls in love again. Did my heart love till now, forswear its sight? For I never saw true beauty till this night. And here he's deeply in love. So you can blame Romeo for those lines. I'm not going to show you that typed text. So if you want to hit pause, again, we're in Act 1, Scene 5. You can also see Tybalt falling back into hatred again here. And so Tybalt has some good lines. Fetch me my rapier, boy. So he wants his sword, and he's telling his servant to go get it. What dares the slave come hither covered with antic face? So remember, it's a costume party. Perfect opportunity to crash a party. And then to strike him dead, I hold it not a sin. So in other words, Tybalt's working himself up into a frenzy, and he's ready to kill this guy just based on the fact that he showed up to the wrong party. And then Lord Capulet says, why, how now, kinsman, wherefore, which is why storm you so? So he can see the anger. And then Tybalt says, it's a Montague to scorn at our good peaceful night, or a good peaceful party. And then Capulet is good to blame here as well, because, Lord Capulet, that is, because he allows Romeo to sit at his party and to be at his party. And he says, like him a portly gentleman, in other words, a good man, on the good side of things. Verona brags of him. It is my will, the which if thou respect, show a fair presence and put off all these frowns. In other words, Lord Cap says, which is here what I want. Put off thy frowns and be patient. Take no note of him. Ignore Romeo. And that's just going to inflame Tybalt, of course. And then Cap gets really pissed, so Tybalt will not ignore it. Capulet says, you better ignore it. So that's a good spot to blame either Tybalt or Capulet. Moving right along, this is their famous meeting. And so Tybalt again here, collar or hot under the collar. What am I looking for? Oh, fever. He's running hot or pissed. And that's why he says he has collar. He makes his flesh tremble, again with hate. And he will withdraw, but this intrusion shall, seeming sweet, convert to bitter gall. And so he's promising himself that he's going to smite or smote or kill Romeo here with these lines. Okay? And then Romeo and Juliet, they speak in a sonnet, so 14 lines. You'll notice the A-B, C-D, C-D rhyme scheme. And they have this idea of hands coming together. And then, of course, Romeo doesn't want hand touch. He wants a little bit more. He would like their lips to touch. And so she says, let the hands do what hands do. And then Romeo spits back, lest faith turn to despair. Saints do not move, though grant for prayer's sake. Then move not while my prayer's effect I take. Thus for my lips, by thine, my sin is purged. And it's just a beautiful line to say, don't move. I will confess my sins to your lips from mine. So Juliet then says, my lips the sin that they have took. And then Romeo goes, no, it's my sin. Let me take it back again. And so they do this back and forth dance. It's very romantic. And that's how they fall in love. So you could blame either Juliet or Romeo based on this page for not rejecting the other's advances. Last page I'll be able to talk about in this video. Romeo learns she's a Capulet, but here he says he's already fallen in love. Juliet says the famous lines, my only love. So there's good lines for that as well.